Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our fourth, I think now, live stream. We're coming to you every third Friday of the month. At the moment, it's 7 p.m. GMT time. Obviously, come October, the times will shift. But next month, we are on August 15th, again, starting at 7 p.m. GMT. So that's 8 p.m. UK time, 4 p.m. New York, 5 a.m. sadly in Australia, and I think 9 p.m. in France and Europe. Anyway, we have an amazing show for you tonight. Lots of fun stuff to get through. We're going to look at some of the features of Build 296. We've got 3 interviews coming up and some trailers. We're going to do some more work on the ClickMan tutorial and working with arrays to expand that. So first of all, we're going to go to an interview with Leo, who's created Mr. Pompy's Extravagant quiz, and I'm just going to show you a trailer for that now.
Do you hate learning boring things in school? Or perhaps you're looking to increase your IQ in a multitude of topics? Well, look no further. Light Thoughts presents their latest game, My Game. Hello, children. I'm Mr. Pompy, and welcome to my extravagant quiz. Me and my good friends, Patrick and Pom-Pom, will test your knowledge in this extravagant quiz. Solve amazing puzzles. Earn the lost golden items. And most importantly, test your smarts. Let's have fun. Just the two of us. It's Pompy's Extravagant Quiz. Buy now or win one in your many store-bought cereal boxes. We can't wait to play with you.
So that is Mr. Pompy's Extravagant quiz, and we've got Leo here, and he's going to talk a little bit about the game and its development and his history with Fusion whilst doing some gameplay. So first of all, hello, Leo. Thanks for joining us on the stream.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Good stuff. So if you want to start your gameplay now. I
Cool.
realize it's a challenge doing both things at once, but there
Sure
we go.
is.
Cool. So first question I ask everyone, how long have you actually been using Fusion yourself?
8 years. It's coming close to 9 years now.
Cool. And how did you actually find Fusion?
I feel like from everyone, FNAF, Five Nights at Freddy's.
Sure. It's a very common one these days. And it used to be back in the day when I first started using the products, it was always sort of finding it on a magazine or something like that. But yeah, that's cool. So did you start out trying to make FNAF fan games, or was that not your first thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. First ever project was a FNAF fan game.
Okay. Did you get far with that?
For the most part, yeah.
Cool. So tell us about Mr. Pompy's. What was the inspiration behind this game?
I feel like a lot of things contributed to the vibe and its characters. I felt like there weren't enough quiz-like games, especially like in the horror genre. The whole edutainment vibe came later in the concept phase. It wasn't always going to be like this. I say like my main inspirations has to be like SCP, Containment Breach, The Amazing Digital Circus, Baldi's Basics, just stuff like that. Stuff that gives off that old color, retro, pretty much. I like retro things.
Cool. And the graphical style is brilliant. I mean, I love it, and I like the little dark edge we saw in the trailer there. But what inspired the graphical style for you?
It's I mean, it's a mixture of my style, but also just again that whole edutainment vibe. I played a lot with like mosaic stuff here.
Yeah. Cool. So, uh, if you could play a little bit of the game there and just sort of show us some of it. Obviously, don't want to necessarily give it all away, but just a little bit of gameplay there and talk us through what's going on.
So right now we are playing on Sarah's save file. Sarah is the person you play as. a a lot of people question who Sarah is when they first like open up the game.
Mm-hmm.
But that stuff kind of gets answered like later on.
Okay.
As you can see, we have collected these golden acorns.
Right.
For
And do you achieve
Pom-Pom.
those by answering questions?
Yeah, you go through these topics.
Mm-hmm.
But as you can see, Pom-Pom and Patrick here, their items have already been collected. Where this game's main focus is Mr. Pompey's topics,
Right.
which is what you don't, which is what you haven't collected.
Can you show some of that now, or is that not possible?
I can.
Cool. So, I think the thing that fascinates me most is how have you brought horror element into a quiz game? That's sounds like an unlikely pairing. So, how have you achieved that?
I say like the main inspiration for the quiz segment would have to be a game known as the Watson Scott test. It's a game that came out like probably 6 years ago at this point.
Right.
It was a horror quiz game, not of this nature. It wasn't cartoony or anything. It was just get in your head type of game.
Sure.
But I thought like, oh, you know what? A cute furry character would make a quiz game more appealing.
Uh-huh. So, what did you find most challenging about creating this game? I mean, obviously, this is more like some of the multimedia type presentations and things that people used to make with Fusion a lot more when it was multimedia Fusion. What challenges did you find when you were actually developing this?
That would definitely be the animations. There's a lot of animations I had to make for the characters, especially Mr. Pompy.
Mm-hmm.
He was the hardest of them all.
And it's all your own artwork?
Yes.
Cool. So, obviously, you've got this game developed now, and you started off with FNAF. What would be your advice for anyone starting out making their first game in Fusion?
Play around, see what you can come up with. Watch tutorials and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You should. I've learned some things over the years. I would definitely say start small, have a prototype and stuff.
Yeah.
You never want to like just go in and not know if something works or not. You always want to experiment.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, I know a lot of people are obviously very keen to get started straight away and really dig into it, but just simple things like taking the tutorials, even Choco Break. I know it seems very basic, but that really teaches you a lot about Fusion and how it works and introduces you to the programming concept. So yeah, you're right. It's good to get sort of a handle on things first. So if you were to add one killer feature to Fusion, what would it be?
Killer feature. Never really thought of that.
Something that might have made your development easier with this project, for example.
I really can't think of anything.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
good.
that's
That
hard.
maybe that means we've just done everything right. You never know.
Maybe. There's a lot of fusion I haven't touched, so there's
Sure.
probably like a lot of things I haven't seen yet. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
that's quite all right. There isn't always an answer to that one, but it's always interesting to hear people's ideas. Okay, so what's next for you after this? Do you have a sequel plans? A different type of game?
Yes, this version of the game that I'm playing is a tech demo.
Hmm.
Um, it tells its own story, but the story will continue in the full game.
Right.
We're playing a full game of Mr. Pompey's Extravagant Quiz called Mr. Pompey's Extravagant Quiz '06,
Okay.
which takes place 4 years later after the events of this game.
Right.
Uh, yeah, that's my next big project. But I do have other ideas for games in the future.
And where can people get hold of this game, or can they yet?
Yeah, you can get the game now. It's free too. It's on Steam, itch.io,
Yeah.
and Game Jolt.
Awesome. Well, that's really good. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will put some links up in the Patreon and stuff, so you can help find those games. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Leo.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye.
So that was Leo with Mr. Pompey's Extravagant Quiz. So we're going to have a look now at builds 296. So rather than showing some of these off visually, there are a lot more of the visual ones were covered last time. I'm just going to go through another big list of things here and pick out a few just to talk about that are interesting. So I feel like I said this on the last stream, but the app properties have been added so that the unpacked exe option has now been selected by default for new applications. So a lot of applications, when they're new virus checkers, do end up getting hold of them and thinking this is something new. I don't know it. It's a virus, and they're not viruses. It's something that all new executables are subject prone to, and unless you sign your code digitally. So when the executable is unpacked, it makes it a lot less vulnerable to being detected as a false positive, because unpacking behavior, which is what happens when a single file sort of extracts itself onto the machine where it's running, that's seen as something that viruses do. So this will make more people's projects less prone to that by default, which is a good one. Where are we now? We've got an option now in the preferences for the skin options that allows you to use button bitmaps from previous versions of Fusion, which some people asked for, although not suited for dark skin modes. I have a note here. Frame editor. This is a good one. Copy no longer marks the app as modified. So previously, if you just selected some objects and pressed copy, it marked it as modified and said that there was a save possible, which obviously wasn't the case. So that's been fixed. There are a lot of little features and quality of life fixes and bug fixes here that should make people very happy, hopefully. Sorry, I'm just scanning up the chat there. No questions. Frame editor. When you paste or drag and drop a global object that has the same name as a global object in the frame, but it's different, you now get a message. So instead of just obliterating or having a failure, it now allows you to choose how to proceed, whether you keep the object, merge them, so on, which is great because a lot of the time you'll develop two frames independently and end up with the same objects that you want to synchronize between the two. And this allows you, if you set them later after the fact to global, it synchronizes with options to stop you from accidentally destroying objects that you had set up elsewhere. some little fixes, like in Frame Editor, when you renamed a global object, shortcuts of the same name. So shortcuts, for example, are in behaviors or global events, and they link to an object that's been imported into the global event sheet or the behavior event sheet. Those weren't getting updated, so that's been fixed. When you load an MFA that has effects built into it, and the effect file is missing on your computer, it will now tell you. There's a big problem because it wasn't very obvious sometimes that those were missing, and a lot of people would sort of open your MFA or you download a tutorial or something, and it would just suddenly not work as it should without any real explanation as to why. So that's a good one. And objects in the global event editor are now updated from objects in the base frame first. So if you have a base frame with your objects set up for use in the global events throughout the app, it takes them from there. It didn't previously. And there were some issues with using qualifier names for sub-application or formatted text objects and a couple of others, and those prevented qualifiers from working properly. That's now been resolved. Bear with me. That's another interesting one. Lists of expressions from extensions have now been cached, and this was actually to fix lags with the dark script object. And I think it might have some speed implications elsewhere as well. Picture editor, the import in box mode didn't work where images had an alpha channel if the pixels outside of the boxes were not transparent. So that's been fixed, and that will smooth importing from a lot of apps that make sprite sheets and things like that. Page 2. And another one, application wasn't marked as modified after changing a frame effect. So a little one, but it was changes that you made, you then couldn't save without having to do another action. So that's been fixed. There's a lot of little improvements like that that make things run smoother. Building apps with behaviors, Eve has optimized this, and it's now a lot faster. And he's also fixed an issue when you built frames that included each other, it ended up in a deadlock where it was just basically going around in an endless loop, and that's now been resolved. And build format has been slightly optimized, and you get slightly better performance with loops and smaller apps. So that's another boost there. There were some issues. It doesn't specify what, but when files were larger than 4 gigabytes, there were some issues happening there. And my focus is going. Let's hold a pen up here, and hopefully it will catch me. No, it'll find me in a moment. The number of objects expression is replaced by 0 at build time if the object is not in the frame. Before, you didn't get the right answer. It wasn't a 0, and it caused some issues, so that's now been fixed. And in all runtimes, the number of lives reaching 0 condition was triggered for all players that have a number of lives equal to 0 instead of only the ones that just reach 0, so that's been addressed. In the editor runtime, there was an incorrect frame index number when you were using run frame for a frame that included another one. So I don't know if you're all aware, but there's a feature in Fusion now where you can include frames in any frame, and that might be to include some code. So you may have an engine that draws your levels, so you could keep that in a separate frame and include that frame along with another master frame and so on. It's a very handy feature, and a lot of people should check that one out. I might do a bit of a dive into that another stream there. Another one, when selecting mouse movements at runtime, the mouse cursor position wasn't correct, so that's been addressed. Some issues with scaling in DirectX 9. There was a rounding error, and also when sub-apps were scaled, and then the parent was also scaled with fit to window. For example, it was not transforming the sub-app when it was displayed as a sprite, so that's now been addressed. Very cool one, the cursor object, which lets you change the mouse pointer. It was traditionally just a straight single transparency level. Now that's been updated so it supports images with an alpha channel. So when you're developing games, you now no longer have to move, for example, an active object around the screen to the X and Y mouse position for your cursor. You can just use the cursor object now, which is a Windows object, of course. The advantage of that, I should be clear, is that before it didn't allow you to blend nicely. So it was very sort of sharp, anti-aliased, aliased? Yeah, aliased edges on the images. So now you can have nice, smooth cursors and pointers and images, whatever you want your cursor to be. Some issues with Unicode extensions and doing string comparisons. Rare one, but that's all been fixed. And Windows runtime nested fast loops could break in the case that they weren't optimized, and using expressions to build loop names. So instead of just typing in a set string, perhaps using from an alterable value or a global string, using that would create some issues, and that's now been resolved. There are a few more interesting ones here. When you paused and resumed the main application, sub-apps didn't restore their timers correctly, which can cause all sorts of issues, so that's now been fixed. The pick closest object condition, I know this caused some issues with a lot of people's projects. So when some objects were further away, they weren't being correctly assessed, so they were missing objects, and now that's working properly. All runtimes now have better frame rate handling in physics movements, which is good. And can we include subtitles in our next? Yes, I'll look into automatic subtitles. I don't know off the top of my head how to do that, but must exist, so I will have a look. Windows runtimes crash in frames using a fade-in transition when objects had qualifiers. That's now been addressed. Some improvements in stability for the HTML5 runtime, and lots of little bugs, just little ones not really worth mentioning, but throughout the iOS, Android, and Mac runtimes. And some sorry, I'm just getting loads and loads of messages from you. Just bear with me. There we go. And the Android runtime, that's going to be a very useful one. WebView 2 object, new action to set it into desktop mode. And obviously, sometimes rendering web pages in Android devices, you don't want it to display in mobile format. So that allows you to force that, especially useful when you're embedding something like maybe a high score system or some sort of an account login into your game there. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there with those. Again, we'll put up the full build list. We are hoping to release the beta of build 296 towards the end of August. There are still a few things to do, especially with the Android and HTML5. So there are still a few little bits left, but we are hopeful it will be out next month. So you'll be able to get your hands on it there. And so we have a Switch sale on at the moment, and I'm just going to show you a trailer for that. We have tons and tons of games on there with discounts. I have not printed out the list. That wasn't very clever of me, but we'll put some details up about that in the news on our Discord. If you haven't joined our Discord, do make sure that you do that. And we've got some excellent members on there, members of staff, moderators, and all of you wonderful community members. Always someone around to help answer a question, and you can get access to some perks as well if you give us a nitro boost, and we're going to be adding to that in the future as well. For now, I'm going to just show you our pro services trailer. So Clickteam has a pro services division which helps you porting projects to consoles, or even refactoring projects. Perhaps you created something and you wanted it to run better, and we work with people to realize those various things that they want to do with their games. So as I say, it may be getting onto console, it may be porting it to mobile, or just working to improve your project. By the way, have a look at some of these projects that we've already worked on, and if you do want to consider using us, you can reach out to our help desk, service.clickteam.com, and open a ticket under the professional services option, and someone will get back to you about your project. So that was our reel for pro services, some of the projects we worked on there. And again, if you'd like to get in touch with us and discuss your project and see how we might help you, head on over to service.clickteam.com and open a ticket under the professional services section. Right, next up we have Charlie, and he has developed Flameland. So I'm just going to show you a trailer for that first. So that was Flameland. So now we're going to switch over and speak with Charlie.
Hello.
Hi, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
That's good to hear.
So, yeah, in the background, I'm just going to be playing through the tutorial and then maybe starting around.
Perfect. Just for the viewers, we are having a bit of a lag issue with our Teams link up. We're looking for something better for next month, but yeah, it's not unwatchable. Fear not. So, standard opening question. How long have you been using Fusion, and where did you first discover Fusion, these products?
Oh boy, I've been using it since it was Multimedia Fusion 1, back when I was in 6th grade. I don't know, I'm like 30 now, so what, like 20 years ago? Right, but like between 6th and 7th grade, a college had a summer camp where you could learn to program video games, and I had always wanted to program video games. So yeah,
that's not something we tend to have in the UK. Actually, summer camps, they don't really exist. So I know a lot of the American users have used them in those places, but yeah, one of these days maybe I'll set one up here. You never know.
Yeah. Well, it's really good. It's a good way to meet other kids your age who are equally geeky when you go to a programming summer camp.
Sure. Okay, so what was the inspiration behind the game? And obviously you can see some definite influences here. Tell me about what made you make this one.
Well, I've always been a fan of the Kirby series. Whoops, that was a bad jump. I've always been a fan of the Kirby series, so definitely in terms of the art style, you know, I was a big fan of Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland, and then later Kirby's Adventure, when I realized that's what Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland actually was. And so a lot of the art is really inspired by that series. But when I was first making Flameland, I was actually mostly inspired probably by classic Sonic. So something you'll see if I like reset here is that, oh, right, you unlock the cafe with extra settings when you play around. But I liked how classic Sonic had these kind of multiple paths in every level. And so as you'd play those early levels, you would explore, find the best path, find the path you liked. And I also liked kind of Sonic's speed. Very early on, I was kind of looking for a new kind of attack, something that would make my game more original. So I came up with this Fire Breath. And the idea of the Fire Breath is that it doesn't interrupt your movement. So I was kind of looking at Sonic Spin Dash and thinking, to make Sonic Spin Dash work, you stop in place and then you get a burst of speed. What if you had kind of an on-off button that did not affect your speed one way or the other? Didn't stop you in place, didn't give you a burst, and then it's just kind of about aiming at enemies, and I messed it up there again. Aiming at enemies and trying to hit the power button at just the right moment to attack them. And so it's like the Spin Dash, but because it's in Sonic, you're invulnerable and you damage enemies when you're in a ball. But in this, you're invulnerable and you damage enemies when you have your on attack on. And it's just much less interrupting. And I found that it created this really fluid gameplay I really liked. When I was making this edition, I added this thing where, and I'll try to show it off soon, that if you have a fire dragon, well, if you have any dragon, the more enemies you kill, it adds to this kind of run meter, which you'll see in the bottom right. So whereas Sonic will use his spin dash to spin down slopes and pick up a lot of speed, in this game, basically, instead of slopes, you're trying to plow through enemies and pick up a lot of speed that way.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting mechanic. And yeah, I don't know that I've seen it in too many games, actually.
I think its simplicity, as I think, almost turned people from trying it, maybe, because it really is literally just an on-off button. And the thing that, like, you could almost see the power bar as like an ammo meter, but you'll see I'm picking up some crazy speed here.
Yeah.
And I'm about to run out, and I just ran out of ammo for that character, so now I have to change characters because each character has their own ammo. But yeah, I really like it. I think it feels really good to control because it doesn't affect your movement in any way. So it lets you kind of just platform without thinking about how the attack is going to affect you.
Sure.
But yeah.
I'm a big fan of keep running games, and I'm actually, at some point when I ever get a moment to do it, I'm working on a concept like that as well, not with the same mechanic you have there, but yeah, it's a game style I really like, and it's interesting bringing that kind of element into what is essentially traditional platformer. That's good. Yeah.
And it's been really fun to experiment. And the other thing I did, so in Sonic 2, when they re-released it, they added this this forgotten zone as like a secret zone. It's like a hidden temple zone or something. I forget the name, but basically when you're in the cave, you can discover the secret zone in the modern re-releases of Sonic 2. And that just got me thinking, I really wish Sonic kind of let you find other zones. So in Flameland, you pick your level at every juncture. Kind of like Star Fox 64, you pick your level at every juncture and decide which one you want to play.
Sure. So obviously there's a lot to a game like this. What was the thing you found most challenging about creating this?
Probably, well, that's a good question. Maybe figuring out how to do the multiple characters. There are like 28 different characters, and trying to come up with powers for all of them was pretty challenging. I think the other thing is I was really adamant that every room should feel different and look different, and trying to have the stamina to really make each room feel like a unique experience.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I don't know if that was specifically a challenge so much as it was time consuming, but making sure that like I did take the time to handcraft every room so that every moment feels unique. Maybe the most technical challenge is, so there's parallax, and so actually the most technical challenge I'll show off right now, there's about to be a transition frame from this select the level screen to the level I'm going to be in, and calculating where all these objects need to be based so that they appear in the right place with the parallax working from frame to frame was a lot of math. So those background objects, figuring out where they need to be to make that transition frame work, both in the transition frame and in this frame. Like, yeah, that was a lot of math. That was maybe the most technically challenging part of it, even though it's a very simple effect.
I struggle with the maths. It's I'm learning slowly, very slowly. So this type of game, back in the days of very early consoles like the Game Boy and even its predecessors, they were very much made up of lots and lots of small tiles which were built into maps and rendered on the screen in various ways as you moved. Have you worked in that way with sort of level data and created them, or have you built this in frames?
I built this in frames. I used the quick backdrop objects a lot, and actually, speaking of challenges, late in the game, I decided to change what the platforms looked like, and that was because of how I built it, that was a very time-consuming process.
Right.
But yeah.
I had a question that I was going to ask you, and it's gone out of my mind. I'm sure it will come back to me.
Yeah.
So we have asked everyone if you could add one killer feature to Fusion, perhaps something that would have helped you make this. What would it be?
Yeah, so something that I knew to do at the beginning of this game because I've experienced in other games, basically as I made new electric dragons in particular attack with range attacks. And as I made new electric dragons, I needed new bullets for them. And so one of the ways I future-proofed the game is in the very first frame I made a bunch of global objects. I made 20 of them that I called unused global object. And I said, don't create at start. And like, don't create on build. But what it let me do is that way when I copied the frames that I was copying, I had these unused global objects so that later in the game, if there was a programming problem that could be solved by an active object, I wouldn't have to paste that active object into every frame. So a classic example, or an easy example, but one that actually didn't come up this time, would be if I had a new bullet I wanted to add. If I wanted to add that late in the game, I'd have to go and paste that bullet into every frame in order for the character to use the bullet. And so I future-proofed this one by just creating for myself 20 objects that could be anything I needed and pasting them in every frame preemptively by pasting in my base frame. But I really wish there were a way. I wish the create object button didn't require that the object be in that frame in order for me to create it. I wish I could create global objects that did not exist in the base frame, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. I think there might be some ways to work around that. I'll have a think on that, and maybe in another stream I'll do some demonstration of code reuse and building sort of engines that work throughout your development without sort of holding you back by obviously being trapped by not having done whatever back at the start. And obviously you were quite patient there, and you put a lot of objects in there as a safeguard against that. But I think there are some ways I can think of that might do that. So yeah, that could be a good subject for a future sort of online live tutorial.
Yeah, that'd be great. I kind of thought there must be a way around this. I tried posting something on the Reddit but didn't get any responses. But yeah, that was my big thing, is when I was starting this, I was like, I have to have kind of spare objects in the first frame I make, so when I copy this frame, those spare objects will continue.
Sure. Very cool. So is this finished now and released?
Yeah, it's on Steam now for $2, which I hope is a steal. I hope people feel is a reasonable price to ask. But yeah, it's on Steam now. I'm really proud of it, and it's had a few people beat it, which has been really exciting to see. I've been watching the high scores come in, because the high scores are how I know people have beaten the game. You don't enter a high score if you die. You only enter a high score if you get to the very end.
Okay.
So that's been fun to watch. Well,
as for value, I mean, I remember buying Game Boy carts, Mario 3 or whatever, and I don't know, they dollars wise here in the UK, they were probably sort of $40. So I think $2 for that in color with all these extra cool bits is pretty good value.
Yeah.
So now this is done, have you got any plans for future projects, sequels, new games?
Yeah, so I made a short game. So the thing obviously I was most interested in that I already told you about was that on-off attack. And so I had created a short Flash game while I was making this that was kind of exploring just that in a bit more detail, and was actually an auto runner. And it added a few features that kind of made it into something new. So instead of it just being an on-off attack that didn't affect your movement, it added a kind of hover to that, and it added a speed boost to that. So it's not the same thing it was. But I made this auto runner Flash game, and I'm kind of really interested in the auto runner genre because like I've seen Super Mario Run did something interesting there. Kaze and the Wild Masks had some interesting auto run levels, but for the most part, it feels like it's been a kind of static genre, and I'm really excited to explore that next. And I think with the kind of thing I was doing with this on-off attack, I think there's something there. I think it will blend well into the auto runner genre. So I'm really excited to experiment with that. And yeah, so that's my next idea. It's going to be about a robot buffalo, and there's a free Flash game right now called RoboFallow, RoboFalo, that was made with Fusion, not Flash, HTML5. That was made with Fusion and was kind of a prototype for what I think I'm going to do next, but much smaller, much less ambitious. That game is much smaller, much less ambitious right now. So the one I'm working on now will be bigger, will be closer in size to Flameland.
Sounds
yeah.
very cool. I look forward to seeing that. Robot buffaloes. Interesting. I like the idea. My game, my keep running game is going to be a robot with different capabilities that you pick up and lose as you go along, different gravities, all sorts of interesting things. So maybe I'll get you to be a beta tester, because you've obviously got that kind of game development style as well.
Yeah, I'd love to. That sounds really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all I think we have. Unless you have any questions for Clickteam, of course.
No, this. Thank you guys. I love using your software. I've had a lot of fun with it, and thank you guys for having me.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. So that was Charlie and Flameland, which you can get, as he said, for $2 on Steam. Sounds like a steal to me. So we are now going to have a look at expanding the ClickMan demo that I've been working on throughout some of these streams. So I've done a little bit of work to get to a certain point behind the scenes. So I'll show you where we're up to. I'll switch to my desktop, open up FusionNet. Bear with me a moment. Hopefully everyone can see my desktop there. It's fit the whole screen this time as well. Brilliant. Okay, so last time we saw, I've added a title screen here. Just a simple little animation. Oh, no, it's jumping through to the next screen just so that you don't have to hear that hideous noise that it was making last time. My colleague Kizgiri will be very happy to hear that I've turned the volume down on those. It was hurting my ears. Right, so we have the game engine here, which is collision based, and these are all just objects laid out in the frame, and this would be a scenario where you'd create one frame per level and go through them that way. And I was just talking there with Charlie about some of the difficulties of that when you get stuck, get sort of caught and trapped by limitations that you build in early on in your development. So this approach that we're now going to look at is array based instead. So I showed last time simple actually, let me just go back and show you. With these objects, I have given each one a qualifier. For anyone who doesn't know what qualifiers are, they are small little icons you add here to objects, and it means that you can group objects together and perform actions on whole groups of objects together. So, for example, the wall and the walls around the ghost area here. I thought I had a highlight thing there. It's not working. These are all they have the qualifier here, this one, which is obstacles. So it allows me to test for a collision against an obstacle qualifier, which might be one of many objects, rather than having to do has ClickMan collided with wall, has ClickMan collided with ghost wall, has ClickMan collided with this no entry barrier, and so on. It allows you to group things together. It's a very powerful tool that Fusion has, and it's not just one qualifier you can add. I've got two here. Engine refers to absolutely anything that is an object in the level. So This is just a score count. That one isn't in there. The array objects that I've got here, this active object that's storing data, that's not included. But everything else is. And you have a ton of different ones to choose from. You can have many per object, so you can create lots of groups to do various things. In this particular instance, I'm pointing those out just to show you this. So I have a simple 4 event little routine here, and it basically at the start of the frame, it starts a loop for each one of this qualifier group.engine. So that means that for every object that's got that qualifier, it runs a loop, in this case called getArray, and it goes through those one by one and allows you to perform a function based on those. So the function I'm doing is on each one of those loops, writing the string into the array, and I'm using the position of the objects on the screen. So I've got 2 global values here called tile width and tile height that you can see here. They're set to 45, and I use the position of an object. So for example, this one, its X position is 180. So if I do, oops, what was my calculator? If I did 180 divided by 45, which is the tile width, you can see it gives me 4. So that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So using the coordinates of each divided by the width and height of each, which happens to be both 45 because these are square, it allows you to get the grid position rather than the actual pixel position. And using that, we write into the array into an X and Y position on the array. So if you remember from last time, X goes across, it's like columns, and Y goes down, it's like rows. So if you had 10 by 10 array, that would mean 10 items in columns, 10 times repeated vertically in the Y axis. It's basically like using math paper at school and drawing in the squares, or working out where something is on a map. Arrays just use a grid that you refer to by X and Y, and if you're using more data in a Z dimension, as another Z index as well, which we'll talk about later because I'm going to use that. So it writes those values to the array for each object that's in there based on the position, and then after that's all done, it saves the array to a file, and I'm going to use that file in the next frame. And I've put in a timer equals 5 here, and it's just a trick there. Sometimes when you're writing a lot of data to the array in a loop, it just takes a little moment to catch up. So this small delay gives it a moment. So when you save, all of the data's there. If you're writing a lot of data to arrays, sometimes it can cause some problems and you don't get everything saved. So based on that frame where I've laid them all out, I'm able to save all of those objects' positions and types. The types, by the way, are stored in each object as a string here, an alterable string called item name. So that one is wall, that one is power up, that one is dot, that one is ghost wall, and so on. So each position in the array gets one of those strings stored. So in our next frame, we can take a look at that. And I'm just going to jump there now. So as you can see, this is a completely empty frame. I have all of the objects here that I will build the level with. Again, if you look at their qualifiers, they're the same. So engine qualifier here, the little cog, that exists. And these objects are set to not create at start. And the reason for that is that we want to draw all of the objects that we want to use. We don't want extra ones hanging around off the top of the frame. So those are just up there for that purpose. So when we go into the, oh, sorry, I should have started that earlier. When we go into the actual code, it's a very, very, very simple routine to actually retrieve that data from the array. So here on this line, again, I'm loading the array file in that I saved in the second frame there. And when you have an array, if it is 10 items wide and 10 rows tall, then you have what's called an X and Y dimension. Both of those would be 10. The dimension just refers to the number of objects you've got in any direction. So X, Y, and then Z is back and back. So that's one copy, and then you'd have lots of copies behind it, almost like in a cube. So in this instance, I'm starting a loop draw level Y, and I'm using the dimension for the Y index of the array. So that's the number of lines that we've got in the array. And when draw level Y runs, it then starts a second loop. So each Y index, each row, it starts a loop called draw level X for the number of X items in the columns. So that is the dimension of X. In this case, it's the number of tiles wide that our level frame is. I forget the number off the top of my head. So we're running rows, and each row runs one loop for each position in the row, each column. And so on that loop here, I am running a simple comparison. So this is compare to general values from the special object. And what I'm doing is I'm retrieving this expression from the array. So I'm asking for the string at position X, Y of the array. And I'm using the loop indexes of the X and the Y to specify which column and which row. So first of all, it will, because this is 0 based, we're starting at 0, not 1 for our first column and our first row. So it will start at 0, 0, and then the next loop will go to 1, 0, 2, 0, and so on. And eventually all of the X's will have looped, and then the next Y loop will run. So that will then start the X loops all over again. So that would then be 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, and so on. And in that way, we could cycle through every position in the array. And so I have all of those objects with string names back in this frame as well. So in this engine objects folder, I have, for example, wall, and that has got item name value again, same as the last frame, and it's got wall in there. So what I'm doing is here, I'm seeing if the stored value in the array is different than ClickMan. Now, I have something special that I need to do with ClickMan because due to the hotspots being in the center of the object, unlike the top left corner for all of the others, I need to position it slightly differently. So I'm excluding that one. That's what this test is for. So for every type of object other than ClickMan. And then our action is a very simple create an object. And some people haven't used this one before, I know, but under the new object, you can create an object at, but you can also create an object at by name. And that allows you to specify an object based on the literal name of the object. So this one here would be wall, this one here would be power up. So at this position, let's say we're at 0, 0 in the array. Now that being the top left square, that was a wall. So this will read that value. So what we're doing is finding the, entering the name of the object to create. So I'm retrieving the string at from the array, loop index. So the first one will be 0, 0. And at that position, the string wall will be stored in there. And so that's retrieving that string wall, and that's telling Fusion using this. I don't know why I'm pointing at my screen. You can see what I'm doing. Using this function to create an object by name, I'm retrieving that name from the array and using it to create the object that I want there. So for wall, and then I am doing the loop index of the draw level X loop, and then I'm multiplying it by the tile width. So before we took the coordinates in pixels and divided that by the tile width, and that gave us a grid position instead. This way is the other way round. So we're using that grid position, which I'm getting from the loop index, draw level X, and I'm multiplying it by the tile width, and that allows me to go back up to the pixel coordinates there. And I'm doing the same for the Y coordinate, but just using the Y loop instead there, and also the tile height. Now, it's 45 for both of those, so in this example it wouldn't matter, but you could have a frame with tiles that were not square, and so you could have different dimensions that way. I like to program in that way because even though the number is 45 both now, it means that in a future level, perhaps I might have some different objects and I might want much taller objects. And it means that just by simply changing a global value, I can change the size of the tiles and make it non-square there. You might notice I have some brackets around this. Those aren't actually necessary. Don't be confused by that. They were left in from an earlier iteration where I'd made it a bit more complicated. Simplified it down now. So this is all on layer 1. So using the string at position from the array 0, 0, then 0, then 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, and so on. Using that string, if there is one, so if there's nothing in there, it doesn't create an object because it won't have any string in it, and it's creating those at those positions. And if I run it, you will see it does exactly that. So that's 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0. This one is 1. No, sorry. This is 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1. This is 0, 2, 0, dear me, 1, 2, 2, 2, and so on. So they're just basically, it's a big grid of your data. It stores whatever you want to put in there. In this case, it's strings which match an alterable value in each of the objects that I want to create, all of which are grouped using the, which one was it? The engine qualifier. So I told you I had a different case for ClickMan. So I've just done a, oh, now there was a little complicated bit here. Right. So in each of these objects, I do have, you'll see an alterable value here, grid X and grid Y. And I'm simply setting those here based on the loop index for the X and the Y and storing them in the object. There was a bit of a quirk because we're creating the object by name here. It didn't get scoped or selected in this event. And so I had to then go into a second event and select that object so that when I was setting the grid coordinates into those two values, it was putting it in the correct object. So I used, again, the draw level X loop here, and I did exactly the same test that I had up here. So it was looking in the array position at this X and Y coordinate to see if it was different than ClickMan. And then I used this, I think this is relatively new, but it's a test that you can do, and you can, so I'm going to go to the engine qualifier here, and I can compare to its fixed value. In case you don't know what fixed value is, every single object that's created has a fixed value. It's unique to each object, and it's a way that you can refer to different objects and know that you're always going to be referring to a specific instance of an object. So I did compare to the fixed value of all objects that were under the engine qualifier there. And to find the number, under new objects, you can choose the expression. Oh, there we go. Hang on. There we are. Fixed value of the last created object. So in this create by name object, this create by name action here, it created the object. Fusion stores that fixed number somewhere so that we can then come back and retrieve it here. So that selects the correct object in all of the objects stored under the engine qualifier based on that last fixed value. And then it sets those two alterable values A and B, which are this grid X and this grid Y, for each of those objects that are under the engine qualifier. And it just sets those to the loop indexes. And in that way, we can call back an object at a later stage based on just its grid position, rather than having to work anything out by dividing something's position by the tile width and height and so on. So the next thing I did was the special one for the ClickMan object. It was a very simple test here again. In this case, if it equals ClickMan, so that excludes everything else from that, it creates, again, in exactly the same way as it did up here, the ClickMan object based on the fact that that's in the string that's stored in the array position. And it does a quick calculation here to store this offset X and this offset Y. They're two alterable values that I have just on ClickMan, and that lets me store two values that define the difference between all the other objects, which are hotspot in the top left corner and ClickMan, which is in the center. So it works out to if that's 0, 0 on the ClickMan graphic, in the center is 22, 22 pixels. So it uses the X position of the object, which will be its hotspot, and then it subtracts the left edge of the object. So that hotspot, left edge, and that distance there is 22, and the same for vertically. And then I simply set the position here with the offset. So I add the object's X position, the offset to it, and that allows it to draw ClickMan correctly here. Otherwise, it would have appeared up here instead. Okay, I'm going to leave it just for a moment there, and we're going to come back to this in a little bit. And I'm going to have another interview now with DeliciousSoft. I'm just going to set that up, and I'm going to show you a trailer for his game Deadly Alien Rogues. Just while I'm still setting up the live interview feed there, I'm going to show you a trailer for POPGOES Arcade Fighting Chance, and we'll be back with the interview. So that was POPGOES Arcade Fighting Charts. We've managed to set up the next interview now with Wade, who has created D.A.R, Deadly Alien Rogues. So I'm going to jump to that. Hello, Wade. Thank you for joining us.
No, that's all right. Thanks for having me, Simon.
You're welcome. And thanks for coming on at, did you say 6 a.m. your time?
6 a.m., yes. I woke up at 5:30 and made myself a quick cheese toasty. I feel prepared, as one can.
That's pretty good. I think I would be a bit of a zombie at that time in the morning. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. So,
That's
standard first question. How long have you been using Fusion and how did you come to find it?
Ooh, do we count products before Fusion? Because I probably had my first foray with a demo of Click and Play that came bundled with SimTown from a school book fair when I was a young lad.
Absolutely, yes. A lot of people came through that. I actually started out using products that one of the founders of Clickteam, Francois Lyonnais, created Amos and Amos Pro for the Amiga computer way back in the days, and I started using that. And then one day my brother found a copy of Click and Play, I think it was, on a magazine in a local store here, and bought that, and the rest is history. And I work for the company, so yes, absolutely counts.
All right, quite the adventure.
It was, yes. So tell us about your game.
So Deadly Alien Rogues is a single screen shooter with some, let's say, roguelite twists to it. When I say single screen shooter, people who are familiar with maybe some older arcade games might find it a little familiar in its layout. But the main thing is it came about after a friend and I got done with a fairly fun session of Risk of Rain 2. And I was thinking, well, how can something that complex be applied to something that is a little bit more pick up and play, something that doesn't require you to have some kind of foreknowledge of how a complex genre such as a full-on roguelite or third-person shooter would work? And I think, well, I mean, you can't get more basic than a single-screen shooter in terms of game mechanics, and something that's instantly understandable for most players. So the general idea was we sat there and we kind of just brainstormed how you could apply similar mechanics to a different genre, and then that's kind of how this came about.
Very cool. So what really inspired the graphical style then? It's obviously got hints of old school 8-bit games. We're seeing a lot of those at the moment. It seems to be having a bit of a resurgence. Were there particular games you played when you were younger that you've reflected here?
Yeah. If I were to be extremely specific with this here, it's kind of aping with the visual style of a mid to late 90s Game Boy Color game. As a result, it has that kind of leftover residual feel of the kind of game that would have been developed late into the Commodore 64's life,
right,
where a lot of the developers for that platform moved on to other 8-bit systems to continue using the skills that they had developed.
Commodore 64
so as a result,
being the predecessor to the Amiga that I first started programming on.
Indeed.
Yeah, so it's obviously got a very visual mechanic here that everyone can get their heads around, I'm sure. What was challenging about it? Because good games look simple, but they're never simple in the development stage. What really which challenged you, and what did you find difficult to create?
So I would say when it comes down to creation, one of the things that ended up being one of those things that became more complex as development went on was that with the game having a vast array of different power-ups and objects that manipulate the way that the game plays and the way that the player interacts with the game, was that it became very difficult to manage all the edge cases where things would interact in strange and unexpected ways. Particularly early on in development, I had a few testers report to me where the enemies would simply ignore their regular programming of moving from left to right and kind of just crash directly down into the bottom of the screen, causing an instant game over.
Okay.
And it turns out that some of their unique behaviors, because some enemies don't always behave the same, were overlapping in a way where they were almost encouraging one another to just bum rush the bottom of the screen, instantly causing a game over. So there were many edge cases where, for example, where power-ups would interact in a way. There's a weapon that fires from the top of the screen, but an enemy that shields enemies that are above it that would almost soft lock the game unless unless you prepare for it. So it was a lot of like, okay, well, how do I program around all the different combinations of things that can occur
Sure.
over the course of a playthrough?
Okay. And what sort of solutions did you actually find then? Was it something very obvious? Was it something that might be blamed on Fusion, or was it one of those weird little bugs that takes you about a year to find, and you get to the end of it and oh, that was my fault?
Oh, there's definitely most of the situations of it being my fault. I can't blame Fusion too much for a lot of the things here. I did just use a weapon there where an object bounces across the screen using the default built-in bouncing ball movement because, you know, an old classic. I did find that sometimes that could act a little curiously.
Right.
So there are a bunch of cases where it simply detects if, despite there being no randomness and only 4 directions selected, if it decides to just bounce in a different direction, that it just gets hard set back to one of the 4 that have been selected.
Yeah.
That's that. And when it comes down to object scoping, that was a bit of a challenge here in some cases because despite all appearances to the contrary, most of the objects built into this game are actually just under one classifier, and they're just using a few alterable values to determine whether or not what actions they'll take.
Right.
So scoping out the objects correctly so that one enemy doesn't get misscoped and act like another was sometimes a bit of a challenging instance.
Yeah, I think object scoping and selection is a really challenging topic for a lot of people, and there are some things which seem almost mystical about how it works, and if you know how it really works behind the scenes, it's actually relatively straightforward, and it's definitely something I want to address in a future stream.
It is ultimately a fairly logical thing, but the
Yeah.
only problem is that sometimes that logic gets inverted depending on the context of when the scoping is taking place.
Sure.
And I think running into that for the first time every now and then can sometimes go, oh, okay, I didn't know that. And then you just have to slightly shift the way you're approaching it.
Yeah, and then of course there are all the little exciting magic things that Fusion does. So, for example, if you were doing an RPG style game and you had lots of troops, and you have each one when you create the player, the soldier character or whatever it is, a tank, and then if you have that object create say like a health bar or a fuel gauge or something above it, and you then come to position them later. So you might say position health bar at position of tank minus like 20 to put it above it. Fusion actually has magically paired those objects together in the background, and so it will know which one goes with which tank. And some little interesting tricks that aren't exactly obvious, and sometimes when you're not expecting them, they can make things seem like there are gremlins behind the scenes doing crazy things to your game. So
yes, it's one of those things that is a bit of a double-edged sword. It can be absolutely wonderful sometimes because you don't require to have like an identifier set up and like a spread out the value and then pair objects manually. Yeah. But at the same time, when it just decides to latch 2 objects together and you really didn't need them to be paired, it can be somewhat of a pain.
Indeed. So you obviously had some challenges with that. What part of your game and coding were you most proud of, or something maybe you overcame that was particularly difficult?
Particularly difficult. Honestly, a lot of the particularly difficult part has very little to do with the actual main game screen here. Maybe beyond a lot of the menu overlays and stuff like that, being able to pause the game and go into this sub menu, and that you can go into the submenu from other screens too, and then return back to them. Everything here is happening in a single frame. So I will say maybe thinking ahead and making sure that I actually planned out how I was going to have everything laid out so that I could use basically just huge groups
Right.
to turn events on and off.
Yeah.
So that you can swap between different game modes and menus and things like that without ever needing to reload a frame. Like as I'm here in this item selection menu.
Yeah.
It is still technically the same frame. Like nothing has been reloaded. It's all pretty
seamless. Done this in a new layer to make it appear above the rest of the game?
Yes. Basically, there are several instances where they are using either layers or some scrolling, or the layer object to scroll a layer to hide or move things.
Sure.
The entire game's tutorial is achieved by simply scrolling a layer across at a given like ID multiplied by the screen's width in order to reposition the text.
Sure. That's pretty cool. Have you ever tried the approach of using a sub application to bring up another frame over the top of an existing one?
I have actually I've implemented using subframes in previous projects before. For whatever reason, this time I wanted to go, well, I'm going to go without using any sub applications. I'm just going to have everything in one giant block. I'm not sure what possessed me to do things in that particular method, but sometimes you're struck by a particular form of madness and you chase that rabbit hole regardless.
Yeah. Oh, it's good to try new things and new techniques. And even if it turns out to be harder or it took you longer, you still learned a lot in the process. It's an important part of developing as a coder. Absolutely.
If you'd never step outside your particular comfort zone, you never actually pick up any new skills. So sometimes you need to do things wrong, or you need to do things weirdly to discover what your abilities actually are.
Sure. So you mentioned there some previous games. This is obviously not your first. Tell us about some of your previous work.
So prior to releasing this game, I released an action platformer called Dash Bounce, also made in Fusion. Now, I use sub-applications in that game for its level editor that enabled you to swap between the level editor and testing the level from within the editor. I felt like that was a very natural way to iterate out prototyping a stage without having to hop between applications. Yeah. Or jump between frames and reload the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah, that's a pretty cool technique. And I'm actually, I'll carry on after our interview, working a little more on ClickMan. I'm building the demo up as we go along, and I'm going to include a level editor for that so people can make their own layouts and try them out in the game. But it's a good way to make games. A lot of people kind of shy away from the level editor approach, and I mean, my brother and people who've known me throughout my coding life will tell you I'm obsessed with level editors. It's like I've made more level editors than finished games at this point for some reason.
It does tend to be one of those things you can fall into where you have more fun making something than finishing something.
Yeah. I'm actually working on a universal level editor for Fusion. It's probably half a year away yet, but it'll allow you to create levels and then simply drop in an active object that's got behaviors attached to it for rendering. So it'll work on any platform, and it'll allow you to load in level files rather than having to have multiple frames for different things. So, yeah.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
My obsession with level editors is coming to its apex.
Every moment has led you to this point.
Yeah, I know my brother, if he's listening, will be laughing there. Yeah, so this game is released?
This game indeed released. It has gone through a few iterations. I believe it is on its what I would call fourth wave of content. It started off with 3 characters, and I believe it's ended up with 10. It started with 3 modes, and I believe it has 9.
Okay, that's quite a few.
Yeah,
feature creep. That's another joyous subject in programming, isn't it?
Yes. Thankfully, I did did set myself a fairly hard limit on what I originally scoped for.
Yeah.
And beyond that point there, they were all like little stretch goals I could add along the way just as a kind of a bonus thing. One of the things that actually got added kind of at the last minute, which might be a bit surprising to people that have had to deal with such a thing, was realizing that before release that most of my wish lists were coming out of Japan. I guess maybe because there's a lot of aesthetic overlap with the game. Was that I quickly implemented an entire Japanese localization. So there's an entire case there where a single global variable is swapping between reading from one table of strings to another, depending on what you select on the title screen.
Okay. How did you store that data then?
So unfortunately, just as a list of strings in a string object.
Okay.
In hindsight, it would have much been better to use an array.
No, you say that, but and I'm going to keep banging on about arrays for a while yet until people understand that they've already been using arrays, because the list object is just a single dimensional array. It's an X-based array, so it is an array, and you've already been using it. A lot of people find the concept quite confusing, but anything that stores multiple items in an ordered way is basically an array. So you already did use an array.
Well, there we go. Accidentally used the thing that I thought I was avoiding using.
When I've done localization, I'm making a. I sound obsessed with arrays here, but I'm making a visual array editor so you can visually enter data and manipulate it in a tool. And all of my localization for that's coming from an ini object, which is, again, another form of array. It's a two-dimensional array, so your groups are the y-index, essentially, and then your items within those are your x, although it's a little less ordered because you refer to them by a name rather than an index number or something, but yeah, still an array.
Conceptually the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
All the saved data in this game is basically all typical INI document saved in much the same fashion. So
yeah,
there you go, another instance of the array. I do say that a visual editor for arrays would be fantastic. I believe. So obviously, I tend to work on multiple projects in tandem. Another one where I've decided to use arrays for localization of strings from the very beginning. And I found a rather great example online where someone had created a method by which to convert from a spreadsheet to a Fusion array. And I found that to be an absolutely wonderful way of going about preloading strings and things in via an external document. So having one that's a visual editor that is just part and parcel the process of creating something in Fusion would be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it's got a lot of functionality. As you can do searches and replaces across multiple elements based on all sorts of different pattern matching, everything from simple string or value matching up to regex for more complex searching and replacing. And it's designed to be a tool for absolutely any type of array you could possibly want to design. So I'm hoping we can find a way to actually lock it into the main software so that when you have an array, you can click a button and this will pop up and you can edit array information using that. But that's a question. I'm not going to make Eve promise something like that when he can't defend himself. So
no, fair enough. It's one of those things that only happens once it's finished happening.
Yeah. All right. So released, where can people get the game?
So at the moment, it is available on Steam. It can be purchased standalone or cheaper in a bundle with my other game, which is also made in Fusion.
Is that bundle on Steam or is that somewhere else?
It is indeed on Steam.
Okay, cool. I've gone slightly out of order here. I normally asked this one earlier, but if you could add one killer feature to Fusion, what would it be?
Now, this is one of those things that may be resolved perhaps in a future iteration of Fusion, but I would love for there to be a more simple means of implementing multiple objects that act in tandem as a single object. Almost think about the way that larger boss enemies were handled in some 16-bit games.
So kinematics then.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I won't say like spline animated or anything like that because I know that's a whole different story. But yes, having different objects be maybe attached by anchor points.
Yeah.
Almost like a puppet style movement.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely something that we've talked about with Fusion 3. I think somebody asked something about that in the Ask Me Anything last stream, but there are ways to do it in 2.5, but it's certainly a lot less straightforward because you don't have those connection points sort of built in, whereas Fusion 3 is a lot more adaptable with objects and how they're built. So yeah,
yes, it is ultimately one of those things that is possible, but at the moment it is just a little cumbersome, and it would be wonderful for it to be straightforward.
Indeed. So what is next for you? Any new games in the pipeline, sequels to this, prequels?
Neither a sequel nor a prequel, though some characters may be making a reappearance. I am working on a maybe mid to late 90s style grab and throw platformer for anyone that have played games like say Klonoa or Mischief Makers. Might find some familiar things there. I intend to splice in some three-dimensional elements using the features in Fusion that allow one to do so. But it may yet remain quite a distance off from completion, as prototyping really only begun about a month ago.
Okay. Something to look forward to, though.
Perhaps, yes.
Perhaps. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Fusion. It's, you can play around with an idea without having to get too deep into the weeds, and sometimes they don't work out, sometimes they don't play nicely, and you haven't wasted a ton of time because it's so quick to develop, and it's the beauty of this type.
I'm always a big fan of rapid prototyping, and I find that there is very few pieces of software that allow you to prototype quite as rapidly as Fusion.
Interestingly, I've been to quite a few arcade shows looking at new like coin-op machines, and a lot of the arcade developers, games like, I don't know if you played that one with the fish bowls where you have to bounce balls in. That one, there's another one with a tower where balls drop down, you've got to catch them, and they've got screens behind. And they, I was talking to them about the project, and they were saying how they developed it, and Fusion came up, and a lot of these companies actually use Fusion for their testing out the games and just seeing if the mechanics work before they go too far into actually building a whole arcade machine. So yeah, it's definitely...
Well, that would certainly save a considerable amount of engineering costs, so I can understand that entirely.
Indeed. Awesome. Well, I think that's all I have for you, unless you have any questions for Clickteam at this point.
No, certainly. I've got my eyes open for the next build, and obviously in the distant future, or whenever that may be, when Fusion 3 comes around, I'm looking to adopt that as soon as possible. I'm excited to the way that obviously custom objects and such like that is coming about.
Yeah, that's going to be super powerful.
Oh, it sounds honestly quite wonderful, so I'm very much looking forward to it. All I can say really other than that is, well, thank you for the wonderful software. It's literally brought a lifetime of enjoyment at this stage.
That's good to hear. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for joining us at such an early hour and on just a toasty. Very well done.
That's okay. I think I've done worse. It brings me back to my university days.
All good. Lovely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, you can get Deadly Alien Rogues on Steam and in a bundle. Make sure you go and check it out.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cool. So that was Deadly Alien Rogues. Now I'm going to jump back to ClickMan. So I'm going to show you a bit more of what's been going on with that there. So, bear with me. Well, just find Fusion. There we go. So we've just gone through this. So we've drawn all objects that were not ClickMan. We've drawn ClickMan with his offset, or her offset, you never know, or their offset. We do not discriminate here in Clickteam. So then there's just a few things. These are to do with the engine, so they're not really relevant. So basically, this small section here, this group of objects, all of that is responsible for building up that whole level. So if you had a series of array files, you would be able to store multiple level information. You could upload the array data to a web server. So we actually made a game called Cave in Dave a while back that I worked on, and I used a very similar approach by saving the objects by cycling through them one by one and storing their positions. And users were able to make their own levels and submit them online, and then others could play them. I'm not sure that's actually working at the moment, but I'll see if we can resurrect that one. And yeah, you can create some really interesting things, and it doesn't have to be a level editor that you here I go, a level editor again, but it doesn't have to be one that you open up to other people to use. It can be your own internal tool. And when this is released as an example, it's going to have a very basic one. It's basically the equivalent of placing your objects in a traditional frame in Fusion, and it lets you save that data into an array that you can then load up yourself in another frame. So you can get to see how you can create that sort of a mechanic to help you design your games. Beauty of all of this is that you have one frame. So this is loading level1.arr that I saved. It can be any name you like. The extension is irrelevant. But based on solely the information in that file, this whole level is possible. And all of the mechanics from the first frame, I've disabled the ghosts at the moment because there's a very odd bug with the ghosts. I'll show you the strange bug with the ghosts. Where are the ghosts gone? They start milling around in a strange way when they're not supposed to. I've clearly made a bug somewhere in my code, and that one now has a seizure. So yeah, they're not quite working yet, but yeah, so any array, 2D array can map out this single level here. You could actually use a multiple dimensioned array in the Z index. So this is an X and Y, columns and rows. But if you think of that as a sheet of paper with a grid on, and that's Z index 0, then you could have another sheet of paper with another level on it, and that is Z index 1 and 2 and 3. So one single array file could actually store hundreds of levels of data, and that could be something that you use the get object, for example, to download an array file from a web server. So when people start it, it loads that file down from the web and then into your game. And in that way, you could update levels, add new levels, add level packs, all sorts of fun things like that. And without having to create multiple frames with different mechanics in. So this one frame can have all of your coding in it, and sound is much better this round. Good. I had some issues with my microphone last time. There was a dial here I hadn't turned up, which I hadn't realized. So yeah, you can put all of your mechanics and objects and code in this one level, and then everything that you do doesn't have to be copied to frame after frame after frame. It's a very, very good way of working. Not all style games obviously are suitable for a grid type layout, but this one is. Platform games are ideally suited to it. Cave in Dave was a platformer. Don't know if I can get a picture up of that one. Let me have a look. I'm searching live here. This could be dangerous. Oh, it's on ClickStore. So, yeah, that was a cool game, and it's got a level editor in it, as I said, and that lets you just place objects down. It wasn't necessarily grid-based. Some of the objects could be positioned at other sort of more pixel-based coordinates. So instead of storing necessarily on a grid form, it just stored each object and then its position in an array instead. And yeah, it added more flexibility that way. So gonna have a look now at the rest of this. So at the moment, that's the level drawing portion. Now, this is working here. The movement is based on when you press a key. So if you press left, it sets a variable to a string to L, right R, U, and D for up and down. And then using a movement delay value that I've got stored here as a global value somewhere here. There we go, top one, of 20. So I use the every timer and then use the value movement delay, which is 20 in this case, to start a loop. And each loop, it cycles through and sees if the direction's left. And then it uses this useful test as a collision. So instead of testing is an object overlapping, you can say, would it overlap, but at another position? So I've got a value for speed, which is pack speed 5. So 5 pixels. So if it's going left, I can say at the position of ClickMan now, -5, would that be colliding with an object? And that's how it's detecting the collision. So it won't allow the movement to happen if there's going to be a collision. So instead of that, using collisions, we could do an array-based movement instead. I'm going to attempt to do this live, but it might not quite work. I try and do these things without practicing, just so that they're a voyage of exploration that you all get to watch and see the look of panic on my face as I realize I can't manage it. So I'm going to turn off some of these more complex ones just for the minute. So normal movement. Right. So as I said, these are all setting if the collision wouldn't happen at position -5 or +5 or -5 or +5, depending on which way it's facing, then make that movement happen. So I'm just going to turn these ones off for the moment and work on left so you can see how left would work with an array-based movement instead. So what we know is that the objects in the frame, and let me just load the frame up again so you can see it. These are all solid objects, and we know that this array position here, this grid tile, which is 0,0, and in pixel terms, it's 0,0 at its top left, and it's 45,45 at its bottom right corner. So we know that if our character were to go into that space, so obviously it can't get into the corner there, but if it were to come a pixel under 45 in its position there, we can actually say that that's overlapping this object, which we can detect. And we can use that instead of collisions to make things move. So here goes nothing. So I'm going to do another loop. I'm going to use the same loop that I had there. So the loop ClickMan move, which is being called every 20 hundredths of a second in this line here with this action. And instead of this test here to say, would it collide? So we can do a different type of test. So I'm going to use compare to general values here. So we can say, would the X coordinate of ClickMan, and bearing in mind that its hotspot is 22 pixels in and down, I'm just going to -22 from that for speed. I would, oh, actually, nope, I was clever. I already stored that in the object earlier, didn't I? So I've stored its X offset there. So I can say, would the position of, there's that look of panic. Okay, now I'm going to go about it a different way. So I'm going to ask to say, choose an object. So I have another qualifier here for obstacles, and based on that, so just to be clearer, because I'm not being, so the wall, for example, and the ghost wall and the no entry, those all have this here, and we've also stored their X and Y positions. So I'm going to say, in this instance, select yeah. So I'm going to select this qualifier based on those two values, the grid X and Y. And to get that grid X, well, I actually only need, no, I do need the Y as well. So to get that grid X, I'm going to get the position of, actually I can retrieve the left edge there as well. That should get the edge of the object, but I will still stick with the X coordinate and subtract that offset value that I already had. So if position minus this offset, which gives us the top left corner of the ClickMan object, and I'm also going to minus that global value I told you about, pack speed, which happens to be a value of 5, so 5 pixels. So I'm selecting the X grid. So we want to turn, like I did earlier, from pixel coordinates down to grid coordinates. So I'm going to take all of that. So I'm saying 5 pixels to the left of ClickMan, and I'm going to divide that by tile width. Now that will, if it's 0.9, that will be rounded down to 0. So if keep saying pack, ClickMan is at grid position 1,1, and we test the value 5 pixels into the next cell, which would be 0,1, then that will round down and give us a 0 based on this calculation. So I'm selecting that object. I'm also going to test for the Y position, and because we're going left, all we actually need here is no, we still need the offset. So the Y position of ClickMan minus its Y offset that's stored as an alterable value. We don't need to remove the pack speed because we're not moving up and down, so we're not testing a position above or below. So is that divided by tile width, that will give us the same level that in the grid, the same vertical grid position as ClickMan. So I've selected those, and based on that selection now, it will select anything that matches that position that we've defined by looking at 5 pixels to the left of ClickMan's left edge. And we can then do pick or count and compare to the number of objects. So if it's equal to 0, that means it hasn't been able to find an object at that coordinate based on those two grid coordinates we worked out there. So if it equals 0, then we can have it carry on moving using the same thing that we did there in that previous event, which was just setting the position of ClickMan to itself on the X minus pack speed, which is 5 pixels. So moving it 5 pixels to the left. In theory, this should work. Let's have a go. There you go. And you can see, without using a single collision, just by testing here to say, is that position minus 5 pixels there, rounding that down to the base value. So that's a mathematical floor function. Ceiling would round up to the next integer. Floor or int both round down generally. I think int does it if it's under 0.5, it rounds down, or above 0.5, it rounds up. So without having to do a single collision test there, we've actually managed to stop ClickMan, dearie me, from moving. So if I copy that again and set that to right, and instead of on this test here where we minused the pack speeds, we're just adding it this time. This one stays the same because we're not moving vertically. And I just changed that to plus. And now if I run it, we can move left, we can move right. So this is another clever way that basically we're using the array without referring to the array on this instance. What I've done was used object selection there to make it easier for you to understand what was going on. Instead of using this and asking for the number of objects that it found, instead we could say at that grid coordinate, X and Y in the array, is it blank, no string, i.e. you can move, or has it got something in it? So I'll just copy those and show you how that would work. Just going to inactivate those two there. So instead of selecting those objects, I'm going to just copy this, and we're going to do compare. Oh no, I can use the array directly. So no, I can't. Sorry, I always do that. Two general values here. So I'm going to compare, and I'm going to use the array expressions, and I'm going to read a string from the X, Y position. So what I want to do is that deduction of which grid coordinate that we want, that we use there. I'm just going to enter that into here, and a bit easier to see. So again, instead of choosing some objects based on that X grid, we are selecting from the array instead. And I'm just going to go back and copy the Y one out there just to save me rewriting it. Oops. So exactly the same as before. X position of ClickMan minus its offset to get us to the top left corner, and then minus. Can I double the zoom on the event editor? I am asked. How would I do that? It's very small, isn't it? I'm not sure I can. Hang on, let me go into the event editor. General workspace. No, trailer. I thought there was a thing in here for fonts somewhere. I can't zoom in, apologies. I don't know how. I'm just squinting at the screen myself. Right. Hopefully you can zoom in on the video on YouTube and stuff. Anyway, we have, oh, hang on. Increase font. There you go. Every day is a learning day. I did not know that existed. Thank you, Chris. You've caused me to learn something at this late hour of the day. Right, so we've got, I assume that's zoomed in as well. No, that's another zoom. Let's do that one. Okay, so we're asking for a string at XY position from the array, and we're using the position of ClickMan with its offset. We're minusing pack speed, and divided by tile width, which gives us the value of the grid position 5 pixels to the left of ClickMan, not Pac-Man. This one just does the same, but it's for its height. And so I'm just going to retrieve that value, and if it equals wall, rather, if it does not equal wall, then it will allow it to carry on moving. And the same for this one. Oops. Butterfingers. I can zoom this in as well, can't I? There we go. That's probably better for everyone. Sorry about the terrible zoom there. My monitor is enormous and I'm still struggling with DPI on it. Right. I've lost where we were. Right. There we go. So we don't need that test now. So in this one, it's moving right. So I just need to change that to plus. So in this instance, it was picking up objects which were obstacles that were at the grid position to the left of and on the same level as ClickMan. Here, we are simply asking for the array to tell us, is there the value wall at those same 2 grid positions based on the 5 pixels to the left or right of ClickMan. Although here, oh, it still worked, didn't it? Right. So, if I run that, it should still work. There you go. So that's an example without a single collision detection. It's pure data in the system there, and using it to see whether you can carry on moving the character. Obviously, I could then expand it to up and down, which still seems to be working. But you can, if you're having a lot of collisions and things in your games and you're finding it slowing them down, you can actually use this approach and physically test the boundaries of objects. It doesn't have to be based on arrays per se. You could simply check whether the pixel coordinates are overlapping. So the bottom edge of one is overlapping the top edge of another in that sense. But using the array data, it's a great way to make levels and do nice and easy tests. And obviously it allows you to move within the grid tile. It's not just, excuse me, they're not just working like square to square. You could make it so you could only move 1 square at a time, obviously by minusing, I mean, if I set that speed of pack speeds, yep. That in theory, oh, there we are. It's very fast, but let me just turn that down so you can actually see what's going on there. So if I set the movement delay up to 300, and then as you can see, it's moving 1 at a time there. So yeah, lots of fun with arrays and lots of things that you can do. As I said, this tutorial is going to be completed, and it's going to have a level editor in it. It's going to have the engine working both at collisions and also this pure array based version. So you can see 2 very different ways of working and hopefully give you some good ideas for how to bring this into your own projects. So with that said, I'm going to reactivate my control panel here and jump back to my main screen, which has gone. There we go. I'm back. You could see me all along, but I couldn't see me. So I'm going to show you now a trailer for Orb Weaver, which is on our Patreon Reactor, and I'll tell you a little more about Reactor in just a moment. that was Orb Weaver, an open source engine that you can download from our Reactor. For anyone who doesn't know about Reactor, sorry, I'm getting passionate, I'm wobbling the desk here. For anyone who doesn't know about our Reactor, it's on Patreon, and you can join free, and we have some paid tiers with different perks, including higher level support directly from yours truly, but also other members of the team. And there are some very cool things on there, so I'm just going to show you a little bit about that. So this is patreon.com/Clickteam. And as you can see, we've got lots of collections on here. And some of those are including the Fusion 3 blog. And someone's asking there, Perry, any news on version 3? Yes, and there will be more in future streams. But for now, you can read the Fusion 3 blogs here. But we've also got a lot of objects and Firefly examples for anyone who has that. And you can buy Firefly through our Patreon, I believe. And you can find out about games made with Fusion here. And also, this is the one I think it will interest a lot of people. The open source files here, including Orb Weaver, which I just showed you. And lots of engines and examples that you can download, many of which have array-based features in them. That one, for example, is a very fine array going on there, even if it's not using. Anyway, lots of stuff there that you can get, and you can join for free, as I said, and you can join. Where are we? Have a look here and find not what I was looking for. Membership buttons. There we go. Sorry, could not see. So we have a. I think it's $1 elsewhere. Just a hey Clickteam, you're awesome. We'd like to support you. We also have a clicker one, and you get all items in the shop free. And that doesn't include Firefly. That's in the higher one there. These are UK prices, of course. It may vary depending on where you are. I'm not quite sure what the exchanges are there. You get new items every month, plus lower tier rewards. So for this one, everything there. For this one, everything in these two. And you get access to our Reactor Discord as well. This one, obviously, you get more exclusive stuff, and Firefly is included, and Firefly open source MFAs in there as well, and all the lower tier rewards. And we are eventually going to tie this into our passport, I hope, so that when Danny's new system is up, you'll be able to get some exclusive channels on our main Clickteam Discord's channels there as well. So with that said, we're going to say, just before I sign off, thank you very, very much. We really, really appreciate you tuning in to watch. And I'm just going to go back to the main screen so you can see me in my full glory. And we are doing our best really to start reaching out. If you've got ideas, things you'd like to see featured on our show, ideas you have for interviews, people you might like to be featured or mentioned, ideas for things I can solve coding wise. We're going to be asking about those in our Discord primarily. So make sure you join our Discord. You can search for it in the Discord directory now. It's called Click Converse, although I believe Clickteam will also bring it up. Going to do our next show every third Friday. Obviously, once we get out of daylight saving times, the times will differ slightly, but for August, it is the 15th, and you can tune in at 8 p.m. UK time, New York at 4 p.m, in France and most of Europe at 9 p.m, and in Australia at, I think it was 5 in the morning, unfortunately. Sorry, folks. Maybe I'll stay up really late one day and do one just for the Aussies out there so that you're not watching it on playback. Anyway, I'm going to sign off there. Thank you very much for joining us. And here's a big shout out to all our awesome Patreons, our Reactor subscribers. Thank you, and see you on the next one.